a day-long seminar, the whole question of the relations between the Sindhi movement and the Baluch movement would be something we should discuss. Now, I think that the most serious conflict between the Sindhis and the Punjabis came during the Zia period, when 43,000 troops occupied the province for months. That was the only time when this situation in Sindh resembled the military upheaval that has been going on off and on in Baluchistan for so many years. But although it hasn't had as overtly the aspect of an armed struggle, what SAPAC, I'm sure, will convey to people in Congress and to the executive and to the American people is that a tremendous struggle has been going on that hasn't taken yet a military form as a result of the suppression of Sindhi rights that has taken place in this environment where so many non-indigenous elements have entered the picture. Of course, in any future dispensation, good relations between all these ethnic elements are going to be important. But I think the central story is that the Sindhi-speaking, indigenous Sindhi-speaking majority has really been the victim over the past decades of so much discrimination in so many aspects of life, not only Sindh as a province in relation to the central government, but individual Sindhis. And what they have suffered and continue to suffer is what I hope SAPAC will somehow be able to get across to members of Congress and to an executive branch that is all too much influenced by what it hears only in Islamabad. Now, tensions are consistently getting worse because each new government in Islamabad has been as bad as the previous one. Now, the PPP promised that it would be different. Lots of promises were made. It promised a fairer share of sales tax earnings, for example. It promised to reverse the gerrymandering that had taken place under Musharraf. It promised to improve the representation of Sindhis and Baluch in federal jobs. One could go on. None of these promises and others have been kept. But I think what makes me most angry is the fact that the human rights violations of the past continue to go on. The ISI continues to round up Baluch and Sindhis without giving them access to lawyers and courts, despite the advent of the so-called civilian government in Islamabad. More than 900 Baluch and Sindhi activists have disappeared without a trace. Some of you may have relatives who fall into this category. I urge you to read the Amnesty International report denying the undeniable enforced disappearances in Pakistan, which cites chapter and verse on this massive violation of human rights, more than the much written about disappearances in Chile under General Pinochet, which many people think of as kind of the worst example of human rights atrocities in the world. I think what we've had happening in Baluchistan and Sindh exceeds what happened in Chile. I use the expression slow motion genocide to describe this whole situation in its Baluch manifestation, where so many people in particular have been killed. Now, American pressure, backed up by this tremendous aid leverage that we have but we don't use, would undoubtedly help to improve the situation. So I hope that the Sindhi American Political Action Committee will grow in influence. Last week, Senators Carl Levin and Jack Reed urged President Zardari to change his approach to the minorities, according to reports in the press, which I think reflects the fact that a gradual awareness of this problem is beginning to sink in. I hope that this event marks the beginning of increasing efforts by all branches of the U.S. government to support justice and human rights throughout Pakistan, and that the United States looks at this goal rather than looking at everything through the narrow lens of anti-terrorism, and in which it doesn't even see the true dimensions of how to deal with terrorism. I wish we had more time. I'd be happy to discuss the whole situation in the Pashtun areas, another ethnic minority area, which I think has been grossly mishandled in American policy. Munawar Laghari has copies of a report I did called Pakistan, the State of the Union, which talks a lot about that problem, because that's what's in the minds of most of the policymakers. But I do hope that the Sindhi American PAC will get attention not only to the Northwest frontier and what's happening to the Pashtuns and the drones and the problems there, but also the very serious problems that I've discussed in both the Sindhi and Baluch areas. Thank you very much. I'm very sorry I have to leave you. As I explained to Munawar, I have a family health problem that requires that I take off and get home. So thanks I've enjoyed being here very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. We appreciate your time, and I suggest that all of you read the report out back. It's quite riveting. I'm honored to introduce now my good friend and the charismatic gentleman that surely got you all here today. Munawar Laghari is a Sindhi human rights activist and sought asylum in the United States, where he has lived since 1994. He is the former executive director of the World Sindhi Institute and a founding member of the Torture Abolition and Survivors Support Coalition. On behalf of the World Sindhi Institute, Munawar received the 1999 Blue Ribbon Award presented by the United Nations Association of the National Capital Area. Munawar has testified before the Congressional Human Rights Caucus on the International Day in Support of Torture Victims and United Nations Human Rights Council, both 2006 and 2007. He has also testified before the Subcommittee on Foreign Operations, Export Financing, and Related Programs, and the House Committee on Appropriations, as well as to the World Summit in Durban, South Africa. He has been interviewed by newspapers, radios, and television programs around the world, including the Washington Times, the BBC, Voice of America, and Times of India. Munawar spends most of his time traveling, fundraising, networking for, and sensitizing relevant people and organizations for the cause of his beloved homeland, Sindhi. Thank you, Munawar.
I'm shy now. Well, thank you for everyone. After a long time, 1.5 years, I came here again. I left Washington, D.C. I thought that I'm going to not live in this city more because I don't want to create more problem in the region. They already threat me, my parents, to me, and my common Sindhi people, especially women, honor killing, children problems, so many problems. Only one person, only one my Sufi guru, Shah Abdul Latif Bhattai, who's giving me energy and strength and motivation and determination, and one very important thing, the love and truth, which I learned from the Bhattai, and that is the reason I'm here, and that's the reason this whole energy brought me here. And I can say the solution of the region, I already, when Zardari came in front of the Washington, D.C. and went to the Washington White House meeting to Obama, I said very openly that President Obama, the solution is not to meeting with the Sufi Muhammad, but the solution is in the Sindhi Sufism. And we Sindhi Sufi are here, and we can give the solution of the region. And that is the peace, tolerance, and success and happiness. And Sindhi Sufism is really kind of is the message to the world. And that is only through the Bhattai, but the world don't know it. And that is my mission. That is my determination. That is my program. And I'm very glad that many of my friends who came from the different places, from my friend Sarfraz Abbasi came all the way travel. One my friend here, Dr. Shujra, who drive in the morning, say 10 o'clock, that he said, can I come? I said, if you are